It wasn't the middle of the night. It wasn't a dangerous neighborhood. It wasn't even a family trying to hide. It was 6:42 on a quiet Tuesday morning. The coffee had just finished brewing. Lunch boxes were lined up on the kitchen counter. Two children argued over whose turn it was to feed the dog while their mother searched for a missing school backpack. Everything about that morning looked ordinary. Then someone knocked on the front door. Within minutes, a family that had spent nearly 2 decades building a life in America found itself standing at the edge of losing everything. Across the United States, scenes like this have become increasingly familiar. Some Americans see them as the necessary enforcement of immigration law. Others see them as heartbreaking moments that tear families apart. But behind every political speech, every campaign promise, every headline, there are real people whose lives can change before breakfast. This is their story, and it is also the story of a nation still trying to answer one of its most difficult questions. Who belongs in America? For millions of immigrants, the United States has always represented something larger than geography. It represented possibility, a chance to escape violence, a chance to earn a living, a chance to give children opportunities that simply didn't exist elsewhere. Some arrived through legal pathways. Others overstayed temporary visas. Some crossed the southern border seeking asylum. Others fled countries devastated by gang violence, political persecution, or economic collapse. Their journeys were different. Their dreams were remarkably similar. To work, to raise families, to live without fear. Over the past several decades, immigration has helped shape nearly every corner of American life. Immigrants have started businesses, filled essential jobs, served in hospitals, built homes, harvested crops, and contributed to communities across the country. Yet immigration has also remained one of America's most divisive political issues. Every election seems to reopen the same debate. Should enforcement become tougher? Should long-term undocumented immigrants receive legal pathways? Should asylum laws change? Should the border become more secure? The answers depend on who is asked. And for years, the debate grew louder. Then came one of the most dramatic shifts in modern immigration policy. Political leaders promised stronger border security, expanded deportation efforts, faster removals, larger detention operations. Supporters argued that America had lost control of its borders. Critics warned that innocent families would become collateral damage. As new policies rolled out, immigration officers increased enforcement in many communities. Employers grew uncertain. Schools began preparing students for the possibility that parents might suddenly disappear from their daily routines. Teachers quietly learned what to do if a child was left waiting after school and no parent arrived. Churches organized legal workshops. Community centers filled with anxious families carrying folders packed with birth certificates, passports, tax returns, and every document they hoped might prove they deserved another chance. For many, fear became part of everyday life. One father stopped taking the same route to work each morning. Another family avoided public gatherings altogether. Some parents rehearsed emergency plans with children barely old enough to understand them. If someone comes to the house, call this number. If mommy doesn't answer, call your aunt. If both of us are gone, stay together. No parent ever imagines having that conversation. Yet thousands felt they had no choice. Every unexpected phone call, every unfamiliar car parked nearby, every knock at the door, each became another reason to panic. Meanwhile, the political battle intensified. Television networks aired dramatic footage from the southern border, crowded migrant shelters, long lines of asylum seekers, National Guard deployments, border barriers stretching across the desert. Supporters called the images proof that stronger enforcement was overdue. Opponents argued they showed a humanitarian crisis demanding compassion and reform. Social media only deepened the divide. Short clips spread faster than complete stories. Outrage often traveled farther than facts. Americans increasingly found themselves living in two very different realities. Each convinced the other simply refused to see the truth. But away from cable news, away from campaign rallies, away from social media, there were neighborhoods where the debate became deeply personal. On one street, a military veteran supported tougher immigration enforcement because he believed laws must apply equally to everyone. Across the road, another household feared that a parent who had worked and paid taxes for years might never come home after leaving for work. Neither family considered themselves villains. Neither believed they were acting without reason, yet both were living through the consequences of decisions made far beyond their neighborhoods. That is what made the immigration debate different from so many other political issues. It wasn't confined to Washington. It arrived at kitchen tables, school classrooms, church pews, factory floors, hospital corridors, and front doors. Then another knock changed another family's life. This time, neighbors watched through their windows. A child cried. Someone recorded the scene on a cell phone. Within hours, the video had spread across social media. Millions watched only a few seconds. Few knew what happened before officers arrived. Even fewer knew what happened afterward. The clip fueled another wave of outrage, another cycle of accusations, another flood of political arguments. But hidden behind the viral video was a far more complicated reality than most viewers ever saw. Immigration attorneys soon found themselves overwhelmed. Appointment calendars filled weeks in advance. Community organizations struggled to keep up with desperate requests for help. Families rushed to gather decades of paperwork. Some had lived in America for 15 years, others for 20. Many had children who had never known another home. Every case seemed to carry its own heartbreaking questions. Would years of employment matter? Would paying taxes matter? Would children born in the United States matter? Or would immigration status outweigh everything else? The answers were rarely simple. As pressure mounted, another challenge emerged. The immigration court system was already carrying an enormous backlog. Some hearings stretched months into years. Families lived in uncertainty, never knowing whether the next letter in the mailbox would bring relief or a final order to leave. For some, hope survived. For others, it slowly disappeared. And for thousands, everything depended on decisions they could not control. Then came the morning that would change one family's future forever. The parents had spent nearly 17 years building a quiet life. Steady jobs, weekend soccer games, birthday parties, school awards hanging proudly on the living room wall. To neighbors, they were simply another American family. Until the knock came. What happened over the next few hours would ignite debate far beyond their neighborhood and force millions of Americans to confront a question that still divides the country today. The knock came again. This time, no one hesitated. The father glanced through the front window. Outside stood several federal immigration officers. For a brief moment, the house fell silent. The children stopped talking. The mother looked toward the family photographs hanging on the wall. Every instinct told them that life was about to split into two parts. Everything before this morning and everything after. The officers identified themselves and explained why they were there. The family had known this day might come. For years, they had attended legal appointments, filed paperwork, and waited for decisions that never seemed to arrive. Every new administration brought hope for some and uncertainty for others. But no amount of preparation could make this moment feel ordinary. The children watched from the hallway. They did not understand immigration law. They only understood fear. One of them asked the question no parent ever wants to hear. Is Dad coming back tonight? No one answered. Across America, scenes like this were becoming increasingly common. Federal authorities argued that immigration laws could not exist without enforcement. If removal orders were ignored indefinitely, they said, the entire system would lose credibility. Supporters agreed. They believed that every nation has both the right and the responsibility to control its borders. Many pointed out that millions of immigrants had followed legal pathways despite years of waiting, expensive legal fees, and complex paperwork. To them, enforcing existing laws was not cruelty. It was fairness. Others saw something entirely different. They saw children crying as parents were taken away, workers disappearing from construction sites, employees leaving restaurants mid-shift, neighbors returning home to find an empty house next door. Faith leaders, teachers, and community volunteers described the emotional impact that rarely appeared in official statistics. Because while deportation numbers could be counted, broken routines could not. An empty chair at dinner, a missed graduation, a birthday celebrated through a video call. Those moments never appeared in government reports. The family's attorney arrived hours later. He carried a thick folder that had grown larger over the years. Tax records, employment history, school documents, medical records, letters from employers, character references, church records, volunteer work, nearly 2 decades of evidence showing that the family had built a life inside their community. The attorney knew every page by heart, but he also knew something else. None of those papers could erase an unresolved immigration case. Outside the home, neighbors gathered quietly. Some offered prayers, others offered rides to school. One woman promised to help with groceries, another volunteered to care for the family's dog. Small acts of kindness began appearing before the news cameras ever did. It reminded everyone of something often forgotten. Communities respond long before politics does. By afternoon, someone uploaded cell phone footage of the officers arriving. The video spread rapidly. Within hours, millions had watched it. The internet reacted exactly as it often does. Some praised the operation, others condemned it. Most people had never met the family. Almost nobody knew the full legal history behind the case. Yet opinions formed within seconds. The comment sections became another battlefield. Facts competed with assumptions. Emotion competed with ideology. The family disappeared beneath the argument. This pattern repeated itself across the country. A 30-second video, a headline, thousands of comments. Then another story replaced it. But for the families involved, life did not move on after 30 seconds. Their uncertainty stretched into weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years. Meanwhile, immigration courts faced enormous pressure. Judges handled hundreds of cases every year. Attorneys raced from one courtroom to another. Interpreters worked tirelessly to keep proceedings moving. The backlog continued to grow. For many families, waiting became a way of life. Waiting for hearings, waiting for appeals, waiting for letters, waiting for phone calls that might never come. Time itself became another burden. At the southern border, another reality unfolded. Families from dozens of countries continued arriving, many seeking asylum. Some described fleeing organized crime, others escaped political persecution. Many spoke of collapsing economies, extortion, or violence that had left them with impossible choices. For immigration officers, each case required difficult decisions. Was the claim credible? Did the applicant qualify under U.S. law? Could the system process thousands more arrivals? These questions rarely had simple answers. Every decision carried consequences. The political divide only grew deeper. One side argued that stronger enforcement would discourage illegal immigration and restore confidence in the legal system. The other argued that meaningful reform, not enforcement alone, was necessary to address decades of unresolved immigration challenges. Both claimed to be protecting America's future. Both believed the stakes could not be higher. And both increasingly struggled to hear one another. Back at the family's home, life had changed in ways that outsiders rarely noticed. The oldest child began avoiding classmates' questions. The youngest refused to sleep without the hallway light on. Simple routines became painful reminders. An empty chair at dinner, one less lunch packed each morning, one less voice laughing during family movie night. The absence became part of the house itself. Friends stepped forward. Teachers quietly checked on the children. Employers asked whether they could help. The local church organized meals. A legal aid organization offered additional support. The community became a safety net. But even the strongest support could not replace certainty. Every phone call caused anxiety. Every unknown number brought fear. Every unexpected visitor made hearts race. Then another development changed everything. The family's attorney discovered that an administrative error from years earlier might have affected the original case. It wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't even close to victory. But for the first time in months, there was a reason to hope. The legal team immediately began gathering additional evidence. Old files were reopened. Court transcripts were reviewed. Former officials were contacted. What had seemed like a closed chapter suddenly demanded another look. At the same time, reporters began asking broader questions. How many long-term undocumented immigrants had built families in America? How many children lived in mixed-status households? How many employers depended on immigrant workers? How many removal orders remained outstanding? The numbers varied depending on the source, but one fact remained undeniable. Immigration was no longer a distant policy debate. It had become a defining issue touching schools, businesses, hospitals, farms, churches, and neighborhoods across the nation. As the family's case slowly moved forward, another hearing was scheduled. It would not decide everything, but it could determine whether they would have another chance to present their case or begin preparing to leave the only home their children truly remembered. The courthouse would soon become the stage for a decision carrying consequences far beyond one family. Because whatever happened next, millions of Americans would see their own beliefs reflected in the outcome. And when the judge finally entered the courtroom, no one was prepared for what happened next. The courtroom was unusually quiet. Every seat was filled. Family members sat shoulder to shoulder, holding hands. The attorney organized years of documents one final time. Across the aisle, government lawyers prepared to argue that immigration law had to be enforced exactly as written. No cameras were allowed inside, no television commentators, no social media live streams, only people whose lives were about to change. For nearly 2 hours, both sides presented their arguments. The government's position was straightforward. The United States has immigration laws. Those laws establish legal pathways, deadlines, and consequences. When removal orders are ignored indefinitely, public confidence in the system begins to erode. Without consistent enforcement, they argued, the law loses its meaning. The family's attorney did not dispute that principle. Instead, he asked the court to consider something else. 17 years of employment, tax records, a spotless criminal history, letters from employers, teachers, neighbors, church leaders, most importantly, children who had never called another country home. The question before the court was no longer simply about immigration status. It had become a question about what justice should look like after nearly 2 decades of building a life in America. The judge listened without interruption. Every document, every witness, every legal citation. When the final arguments ended, the courtroom fell silent once again. Then came the words everyone had been waiting for. The court would reserve its decision. There would be no answer that day. The waiting would continue. For the family, the uncertainty was almost harder than the hearing itself. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered. Microphones stretched toward the attorney. One question came again and again. Is this family going to be deported? The attorney paused, then answered carefully. This case is bigger than one family. It reflects the difficult questions our country continues to wrestle with. Within hours, headlines appeared across the country. Some focused on enforcement, others focused on compassion. The same hearing produced 2 very different stories. As the weeks passed, the family tried to return to ordinary life. The children went back to school. Homework returned to the kitchen table. Soccer practice resumed. Birthdays were celebrated, but nothing felt entirely normal. Every trip to the mailbox carried hope and fear. Every ringing phone interrupted conversations. Life had become measured not by holidays or seasons, but by court dates. Their story was not unique. Across America, thousands of families lived in similar uncertainty. Some eventually received legal protection. Some obtained permanent residency after years of litigation. Others exhausted every legal option and left the country. Some departed voluntarily. Others were removed through enforcement actions. Each case followed its own legal path. Each carried consequences that reached far beyond the courtroom. Meanwhile, the national debate intensified. Supporters of stricter enforcement pointed to record numbers of border crossings in recent years. They argued that without firm enforcement, future migration would continue to overwhelm the system. They believed that every sovereign nation has the right to determine who enters, who stays, and under what conditions. They also argued that fairness requires respecting those who spent years navigating legal immigration channels. Advocates for broader reform looked at the same situation differently. They pointed to families with deep community ties, businesses struggling to replace experienced workers, children growing up in mixed-status households, an immigration court system burdened by years of backlogs. To them, the issue was not whether laws should exist. It was whether the current system reflected the realities of modern America. For decades, Congress debated comprehensive immigration reform. Presidents from both major political parties promised solutions. Some expanded enforcement, others expanded humanitarian protections. Some strengthened border security, others emphasized pathways for long-term residents. Yet, despite years of political promises, no lasting consensus emerged. The result was a system that often left families, employers, law enforcement, and communities navigating uncertainty together. Several months after the hearing, the family finally received another notice from the court. The envelope sat unopened on the kitchen table. No one wanted to be the first to read it. The father finally broke the silence. He slowly opened the letter. Inside was a decision. The judge had granted the family another opportunity to continue presenting their case based on newly reviewed evidence. It was not permanent legal status. It was not a guarantee they would remain in the United States. But it was another chance. For the first time in months, the children smiled without forcing it. Hope returned, not because the future was certain, but because it was still possible. Their story continued. Like thousands of others, it remained unfinished. Some viewers may believe the family deserved that second chance. Others may believe the law should have been applied differently. Reasonable people can disagree. That is precisely why immigration remains one of America's most challenging public questions. It is a debate that reaches beyond politics. It reaches into classrooms, factories, churches, hospitals, courtrooms, and homes. Perhaps the most remarkable truth is this: behind every statistic is a face. Behind every policy is a family. Behind every campaign promise is a decision that will eventually touch someone's life. For some Americans, immigration represents opportunity. For others, it represents the need for stronger borders and consistent laws. For many, it represents both at the same time. That complexity cannot be captured in a 30-second video, or a headline, or a campaign slogan. The family never forgot that Tuesday morning. Years later, they could still remember the sound of the knock, not because it ended their story, but because it changed the way they understood America. They discovered that hope and fear can exist together, that laws and compassion often collide, and that the future of a nation is sometimes shaped not only by presidents, judges, or lawmakers, but by ordinary families trying to build ordinary lives. The debate over immigration will continue. New administrations will introduce new policies. Courts will issue new rulings. Communities will continue welcoming newcomers while asking difficult questions about security, fairness, and the rule of law. Those conversations are unlikely to end anytime soon. But perhaps the most important question is not who wins the next political argument. It is whether Americans can continue discussing one of their nation's most difficult issues without forgetting the humanity of the people living through it. Because somewhere in America, as another family finishes breakfast, as children prepare for school, as another ordinary day quietly begins, someone may hear a knock on the front door. And once again, everything may change. If this story made you think, don't forget to subscribe to Crime Codex Files for more cinematic documentaries that uncover the real stories behind America's most defining moments, the headlines that shaped history, and the lives forever changed by them. And remember, behind every policy, there is a person. Behind every headline, there is a family. And behind every debate, there is a story that deserves to be understood. The only question is, which story will we uncover next?